Hello, I'm EnterElysium and welcome back to Children of a Dead Earth, the realistic space combat simulator. Right, last time we did custom ships and we fought our mission over Vesta, and we murdered everyone, but we did it. This time, after doing the ship design, we're going to do the module design, which we would have just unlocked if I hadn't unlocked it earlier. So, welcome to module design. Here you can make engines, propellant tanks, possibly not the most interesting part. Weapons, definitely interesting. Ammo. Pretty interesting. Payloads, definitely interesting. Power plants, yes, you can make nuclear reactors. No, it is not simple by any means, because, again, this is all physically realistic. They actually follow the real laws of physics and stuff in how you make a nuclear reactor, and yes, it is nuclear science. Nuclear physics science. I should have made the joke over here and said it's not rocket science. Actually, it is. But anyway, and then radiators, and then command, and then, this is it's easier. It's less interesting. So let's dive into something you can make. And I won't make one right yet, because I think we should start off with something a little bit smaller. But for instance, you might see payloads. Oh, what's this? A 1 teraton fission device. Actually, a fusion device. Boosted fission basically means fusion. Yeah, I made this. It creates a 1 teraton explosion. Well, just shy of 1 teraton explosion. That's a good portion of the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, and by good portion I mean like about 1%, maybe a bit less. Yeah. Now, of course, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs hit the ground, and a lot of energy went into the ground, and most of it just got wasted. If we were to detonate a nuclear weapon, you tend to detonate them in the atmosphere, because that way, and most people go, oh, EMP, that's the upper atmosphere. In general, you detonate it, say, 200 meters above the ground, or a little bit more. The idea being that instead of the energy being absorbed into the ground, and then when it spreads outwards, getting disrupted by terrain, if you detonate it over the top, it goes down and it hits everything below it. You get the same effect. This would probably do a good deal of damage. It would get close to the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, at a guess. The thing is, we can't really tell because no one's ever detonated anything close to this. The Tsar bomber, which was the biggest nuclear weapon ever detonated by yield, was nowhere close. And this is 844 gigatons equivalent of TNT. The equivalent of this device would be almost 1 trillion tons of TNT. Just think about that. 1 trillion tons. What the hell? I don't think that even exists. Oh, of matter, yes. Of TNT, no. So, the downside of this device is it does cost 1/3 of a billion credits. It masses at over 11,000 tons. And it is 10 meters by 20 meters. You actually can't make a larger device. I've maxed out a number of the stats here, and frankly, I can't really go on from here. It's a shame. But it is a crazy, crazy bomb. And as you can see, this is how you make a fusion weapon. Look, we've got like the core composition, which for us is uranium-235 dioxide. The reflector, which reflects neutrons to try and increase the criticality of the core, which we've got lithium. Combustion, the fast explosive, the hollow core radius, etc. These are all assumed to be implosion-type devices instead of gun-type devices. When you make a nuclear weapon, the idea is you want to bring fissile material to criticality. Now, what happens there is you get stuff that wants to decay and release neutrons and other forms of radiation. You want to, well, make it trigger other atoms to do that by hitting them with the stuff that gets released. And the idea being, if you can get enough atoms in the same place, when one of them breaks down, it'll trigger another one nearby to break down, because the stuff gets released and hits the other thing, which will cause that to break down, and the stuff will get released, which will hit the other thing. And basically, you get this chain reaction. This is what we call a chain reaction. Criticality. So we want to get it to make it super critical. We want to basically get it into meltdown at the point where it just goes, oh, it's all going so quickly. Boof. And it blows up because it releases all the energy. Now, the longer you can hold it there, we're talking like fractions of seconds, the more of that gets done before it explodes. So you tend to want, a lot of it, and then you put explosives around it to force it inwards to make it boom. The idea being that if you've got a hollow core in the center, it won't do this because a lot of the stuff being released, the energy, the neutrons, gets released into the hollow core or outside, and they don't hit stuff. But when you explode it inwards, the hollow core, it implodes. There isn't a hollow core anymore. Suddenly, you actually remove that surface area where the neutrons are getting let out, and they're creating more stuff, and boom, it implodes. That's a very, very crude description, and I'm not really doing any sort of diagrams, but you get the idea, hopefully. Now, by including deuterium and tritium in here, we make this a boosted fission weapon, or more precisely, a fusion weapon. It doesn't really matter more precisely or not, but the point is, the energy then that exists allows deuterium and tritium to fuse together. Some elements, when they break apart, release energy. Some, when they fuse together, release energy. Anything above iron effectively releases energy when it breaks down. Anything below iron effectively releases energy when it's fused together. Iron's very stable. So again, very, very crude. I don't have a whiteboard or the proper background in physics to go into a lot of detail, but the crude stuff, you get the idea. The idea being that this is massive hollow, and we've got it filled with deuterium and tritium, and it explodes, and it does a lot of damage. So that's a ridiculous nuke. We're never going to use that. In fact, that is actually impossible to use. I've tried to. You need a ridiculous number of rockets to make it explode, because you can't get anywhere near the opponents. They just shoot it down. More interestingly, here is the smallest fusion weapon I can make. Now, the smallest fission weapon is about 20 kilos in reality. Some of the nuclear suitcases, or the Davy Crockett nuclear, I think it's a nuclear rifle or mortar or something. The idea being it's basically a small mortar shell that explodes and it's a nuke. Yeah, those weighed about 20 kilos. This weighs 3.25 kilos. Oh yes. By using americium rather than, say, uranium or whatever, we managed to make a very small nuke. And in fact, it is a fusion weapon because it has got itself filled up with deuterium and tritium. And it weighs a tiny fraction. And its cost is less than 1,000 credits. It's half of that. The radius? 5 centimeters. This thing is about 10 centimeters by 20. Just a bit larger. 11 by 22. This thing could actually go in a gun and be fired at the enemy. And you know what? I have done that. Welcome to the 100 megawatt, 213 ton fusion shell coil gun. Oh yes, accurate to about 120 kilometers, depending on the enemy's cross-section. This thing fires fusion shells. Now, you notice it doesn't have a turret. You have to point towards the enemy to use it, which is a bit of a shame, but it does pretty well for itself. Now, those 3.25 kilo shells are actually wrapped up in some nickel iron molybdenum of almost 8 kilos, because to get a coil gun to work, the projectile itself has to be magnetic. So you need to use a ferrous material. Material that can take you can basically take the ferrous material and you can apply magnetic force and you can move it. That's what basically a ferrous material is. It's something that can have a magnetic field. And we're using nickel iron molybdenum because it's tough, because it needs to withstand the forces of getting to 22 kilometers per second. And we're wrapping the fusion shell in that, and that'll allow it to accelerate. This thing is pretty damn crazy. The power consumption of the actual coil gun itself is actually very low, 3.6 megawatts. In fact, we could lower the power consumption of this to 3.6, that's kilowatts, let's go to megawatts. And it's firing still pretty fast. Are you firing at all? Yes, you are. And now it actually uses a lot less power. In fact, I'll save this as this. The cost, though, pretty expensive. A lot of vanadium chromium steel, because, well, the coil barrel itself needs to be very strong. Very strong, because the sheer force applied to this projectile is very, very high. We can accept that. So you can create a lot of interesting things, and I know I've talked for literally about 9 minutes about stuff I've made and just fanboying over this, but let's actually try and create something very basic for the moment. Let's stick with... I could say, oh, let's do the old rocket science joke. We'll stick with something basic. Let's just do some rocket science and create an engine. That's not a bad idea, but I want to save that for something else. Let's just create a very, very quick... explosives. Tempting. Explosives are actually really, really simple. You go, oh, how long do you want it to be? How much explosives do you want? What type of explosive? We're going to go cyclonite because it's the most precise. Basically, it's effectively one of the best explosives we've got. In fact, it is the main thing in composition C4. Cyclonite. Then you can add shrapnel. Why you'd want to use aluminium, I don't know. Aluminium probably isn't the best shrapnel. It's too light. It melts, actually. It might melt in explosion. Not that melting a material and then using it as a shrapnel is particularly bad. It's a great way of getting through armor. But we actually probably want to go with something, I don't know, crazy. Let's go crazy. Let's go for osmium, the densest material we have at 23 tons per meter cubed. And then shrapnel mass of, let's put explosives. Let's get like a kilo. Increase the length a bit more. Shrapnel mass of 16 kilos. Oh, look at that. Look at the amount of shrapnel pieces we have. Each piece is 6.5 grams. And you can do that. And then you can put this in a gun. And you can fire it out of a gun. And you can create some interesting things. For instance, I've, again, created another weapon. This, which fires a 220-gram cyclonite osmium projectile out of this cannon. This cannon isn't expensive, but it's accurate to about 20 kilometers, which isn't bad for a conventional gun. Conventional guns aren't great. Rail guns and coil guns are certainly better. But the idea being you can put this on a not too expensive drone. 40,000 credits and weighs half a ton. Not too bad. Let's actually try creating, and I know people want me to create a nuke, so let's create a nuke. So we'd like to create a new nuclear weapon. Right. Let's start with a core composition of uranium or uranium dioxide. Depleted uranium is going to be useless. I don't think you could ever make that stuff go critical. You'd have to really, really try. We could go plutonium. Yeah. Let's try plutonium. I don't know if we're going to use 241 or 240. For now, let's try sticking with 240. It's a lot more typical. And reflector composition. A really good reflector is lithium. Lithium-6 and lithium are basically identical here. The cost does vary. In fact, lithium-6 is a lot more expensive. We'll go with lithium for now. We'll change that to lithium-6 later on and see if that changes any stats. Combustion. Let's go with cyclonite for now. Delay composition. We'll use boron. And then fast explosive, we'll go for cyclonite again. Fusion boost. Yeah, let's try and get a bit of a fusion boost going on. And we're going to use deuterium tritium. That's basically the thing I go for all the time. I've not had as good results trying to use some of the others, so we'll stick with that. And density, max the density out. Enrichment of the plutonium, max that out. I can ignore this stuff for the moment. Hollow core in a radius 0. Right. Assembly will not explode and the core will not go critical. Assembly will not go supercritical. So we need to be able to detonate it. Let's have more cyclonite. So that's the mass of the fissile core. In fact, let's just make the fissile core a nice number. We'll stick with that. 1 kilogram. If we actually make it larger, will it detonate? There we go. We'll go supercritical immediately and spontaneously. With a half-ton plutonium. And a pretty good yield as well. Okay. So let's put it at 50 kilograms and see if we can get that to detonate. Right. Inner explosive width. No. It's not going to work for us. What about... composition will not ignite. Will not go supercritical. Will not implode. Right, let's actually give a hollow core radius a tiny bit. Right, so not going supercritical. Increase compression of the assembly with more explosives, a great range of explosive detonation velocities, or a smaller fissile core. So here's one of the issues right now. We have cyclonite and cyclonite. That just puts pressure on. Whereas if we have two different types, it'll put pressure on and then it'll put pressure on again, because one will go the other velocity. So let's try switching out to nitrocellulose or nitroglycerin. I'm going to go cellulose. It's a little bit slower burning. And we should see... Look at that. We used to have to go to half a kiloton. Half a ton. We're now doing a lot less. And if we have a look at some of our other settings, inexplosive width. Well, it actually turns out that I believe this is the smallest possible fusion weapon. It turns out plutonium-240 is actually the best material for the job. I mean, a lot of the plutoniums actually fulfill exactly the same role in this, apparently. In terms of everything else, I can't figure out another way to get any other fusion element to work. Deuterium and tritium are probably the best things for fusion anyway. The other ones, we need to compress them a lot more. This, I'm quite happy with. This is going to be very, very useful. So, we need to make this into a payload. Currently it is listed as a payload, but we actually need to make it into a ship design, payload, new, add payload. There we go. And then we can save this as 139 ton fusion shell. I'll just save it as 139 fusion. That's fine. Save. Look at the payloads. The other one's been saved as shell. The other one I saved with armor on it, because I was like, well, I might as well put some armor on it. For this, we're going to try and keep it as small as possible. Admittedly, the armor here is only a little bit of the millimeters, but... Also, look at the cost by comparison. Oh, so much cheaper as well. Right. Module design. Now, in terms of what we're going to put it in, I'm tempted to make a lot of tiny, tiny mini-missiles and just spam mini-missiles from a long distance. We'll go with something a little bit simpler for now. We will go with... Let's have a quick look at railguns. You can put a payload in. Let's put a payload in. Now, bear in mind that our payload still weighs half a kilo, and railguns are actually particularly bad at that, so yeah. Railguns fire very light projectiles. We're going to go with a coil gun. Okay. So, coil gun. For a start, let's go and select payload. We want it to be the fusion shell. Barrel, shatter, blah, blah, blah. Payload is larger than the barrel bore radius. Right. Well, we need to make the bore radius larger. There we go. Projectile is too long for barrel. We'll come to that. Mass. 1 gram. This is something we're going to have to fiddle with. The more metallic element we give to the projectile, the more push it'll get. For the moment, we'll stick it at a 50-50 shell, because the shell weighs about half a kilo to metallic element. And we'll go with... We've got to pick something that's nice and strong, but at the same time very magnetic. Cobalt is a pretty good choice. Nickel aluminium gives you a little bit more yield strength. Young's modulus is 209. Young's modulus is actually higher there. Barrel will shatter. Alright. So, let's make our barrel out of something nice and strong. A good choice is like beryllium copper if you want something that's strong but also can conduct a charge. We'll grab beryllium copper for the moment. Might have to change out that later. So, I've increased the power of the gun to 60 megawatts. 60 megawatts for the loader as well, because, well, they might as well match. And now we're getting the coil becomes magnetically saturated. So this is kind of a waste of the energy, that we're not really getting any buff from it because the coil is basically pushing the projectile as hard as it can. So if we need to make the projectile more massive, I've currently got it at 1 kilo. Or we need to make something that has a higher saturation flux density. I've switched to iron, which has a 2.2 Tesla, whereas cobalt is the next one with 1.82. And then you've got some of the other ones like nickel, aluminium, etc. None of these get quite as close as iron. So we're going to stick with iron for the moment. We might need to change out of iron later on, because iron is not the strongest material there is. In terms of everything else, we currently have the issue that internal pressure will rupture the barrel, internal pressure will shatter projectile. Not great. We'll also then, coil becomes magnetically saturated, let us decrease the wire radius. There we go. Okay, so we're currently packing about 1.66 kilometers a second. If, you know, we wouldn't be rupturing the barrel. We will. We will. Right, and a lot of playing around later, I've managed to make the fusion coil gun with a range of just shy of 100 kilometers. And it is pretty compact. I, of course, could make it larger, maybe make it a little bit more powerful, but I kind of like the idea that this thing can fit on several mounts and we can, you know, pack quite a few of them. Right now, it doesn't even cost 1,000,000 credits. And I like the idea of that. A weapon that we can actually have several of, and maybe we just burn towards them. One ship, tiny ship, then shoot them from range. And you might be like, well, no, it's not crazy range weapon. But it depends on your cross-target area, right? So, people have wondered why there is a range on the weapons. That is the maximum effective range at which you're likely to hit your target, depending on the target's cross-section, because the bigger a target, the easier it is to hit, and because of deflection in the barrel. For instance, we can increase the bore radius, but the larger the bore radius, the less accurate the projectile, because it can waver up and down a little bit. So we're going to try and aim for this. It seems reasonable, just shy of 100 kilometers, and especially with such a... It's not small, but it's not too large. We're looking at 1.3 meters by 6.4. We should be able to have a reasonable chance of getting close enough to fire it. Let's add it to a turret. So, with a turret, you can play around with how large the turret is. Obviously, it has to be large enough to actually fit the gun, so that's like the minimum size we can have. But you have a very narrow turning angle, and you have a fairly low speed if you don't increase the size. So we're going to increase the size 1.5 meters. For now, we might increase that a little bit more. Weapon has a low turning speed. For this, let's play around the reaction wheel. So, you can see that right here we're playing around with this, and we want to try and get it so that we don't use more energy than the weapon itself. Otherwise, we'll be just spending all of our energy powering the reaction wheel. Currently, there's very low turning speed. Not really good enough. I think honestly we're going to need to increase this a little bit. Okay, so here's the final-ish design. I've had to knock a little bit more off the range because I've decreased the length of the barrel. And frankly, it annoys me, but it'll do. We have a turning speed of 35 degrees per second, max angle of 70. Again, the turret is very large. I would rather have it, you know, more like that. But again, that does cut down on our speed of traverse, and again, that's not really acceptable. Mostly adding the last 0.4 meters on here was to get rid of this annoying message. I think that's kind of fine, honestly, but I might as well get rid of the message. Now, note that to do the high RPM that I want, I've had to use osmium for the reaction wheel, and then you want to look at our cost over here, and the mass. Yeah, most of the mass is osmium, and the cost, about 4 million credits of this is osmium. Actually, more than 4 million credits. If we take the turret completely away. Yeah. Ow, it's expensive. Honestly, we should probably put some armor on as well, since this costs so bleeding much. In fact, how much armor can we get before we significantly degrade the turning speed? I think we could get about 5 centimeters of aluminium. It's a non-issue in terms of cost. Mass, a little bit, but the osmium itself is so damn expensive. We will accept this. Eek. And then, what we'll do is we'll go in, we will grab our fusion turreted coil gun, we'll duplicate, and we'll make one where we don't have to worry about that at all. And it'll be amazing. We'll maybe increase the number of stages, get more accuracy. Increase the number of stages means we can decrease the power output. Well, I've managed to make it have 150 kilometer range, but that's not exactly what we're here for. We could probably make it more. Oh god, we really could, couldn't we? Decrease the power. There we go. If we make it half a kilometer long, only costs 20 million credits, which is ridiculous, but sure. We can hit targets 170 kilometers away. It's a little bit ridiculous. And I love it. I'm going to accept it. It's amazing. I don't know how we're at all ever going to use it. Ship design. Warship. New. Okay. We'll save this as, what would it be called? It's not really a frigate or a destroyer, it's so light. I would call it a gunboat? Even then, it's just a single gun. I'm gonna call it a Lancer. I'm gonna save it as Prototype Lancer 1, because it's not finished. Prototype Lancer 1. And here's the finished article, the Prototype Lancer 2. So I've changed a number of things up. We're actually using nuclear engines now, powered off of methane. We've got 4 kilometers per second of delta V. We've got over 1 G of acceleration. We've got the one weapon. If it was a proper ship, like a battleship or something, I'd put more weapons on. But this is really just to try out the weapon. The cost and the mass do come pretty high. Sadly, yeah, the gun needs people and the people need fuel to push them around, which needs engines, which needs more fuel, which needs armor, which needs more fuel. Yeah, you notice that most of the mass is taken up by propellant. Armor then makes about a fifth. Radiators and a massive chunk. Crew modules, and then the other things like the weapons and stuff are pretty much negligible. The cost is over 40 million credits, and I will explain why that is. Module design, weapons, and I believe you. Yes. So, welcome to a 10 million credit weapon. Why is this? It's mostly from the nickel aluminium, which makes up the armature, i.e. the thing that coats a projectile, because we've got 4,000 rounds of it. 4 tons of nickel aluminium apparently is very expensive. If we take away the ammo bay, it only costs about a fifth of the original cost. So yeah, that's almost a quarter of the cost of our ship. But let's try it out. So, sandbox, allied craft, where are you? There we go. Lancer, we'll have 2. And then we'll give the enemy 85 million credits and 3 kilotons. That should probably give them more. Our ships are light. Enemy, You have some railguns and stuff. We'll try not give you, like, too distant railguns, because the issue is, our front, like, weapons probably get knocked off very easily. But, yeah, we'll play around. Wow, okay, we're almost to the price there of 1. But they overweight. They overweight us already, don't they? Yeah, they overweight both of our craft, yet they're much cheaper. I have a habit of making expensive things. Corvette? Yeah, why not? You cost a lot more. There we go. Got a gunship on just for the lulz. Gun skiff. Oh, these ones I made myself, like nuke gunner and stuff. Yeah, let's pass on you for the moment. What else can we have? Ranger, silo ship. I don't want to go anything with missiles. We haven't designed ourselves to deal with missiles. That's just a specialization thing. So we'll avoid missiles at all costs. And lasers. We'll talk about them some other time. Phalanx? Shooting star launcher. No launchers. No launchers, bad. Missile. Carrier. The Dreadnought is one I made myself. It's ridiculous. It costs a giga credit. It's got really good armor, though. It's stupid, but it's got good armor. No, we'll give him another Corvette. That brings up to 11 kilotons and a third of a giga credit. And we will have 1 more Prototype Lancer. So we weigh less than half their weight and we weigh about a third of their cost. Yeah, that seems good to me. Celestial body. Let's change the body. We'll go for something fun. Something with panache. I like the idea of a fight above Titan. Yeah. Right, enter the sandbox. I'm going to restart just so we get ones with slightly different orbits to that. Where we've got... that's probably not too hard to intercept. Yeah, I'll go with this. Right. What the hell is that? I think I may have found a bug. Let's restart the mission. Yeah, that was interesting. Let's try and pick one where we're actually in orbits where we could catch up with them relatively soon. We actually seem to be in pretty low orbit. I guess that Titan doesn't have a very large sphere of influence. We'll try a restart a couple more times, but it looks like we might have to just do a fun... Oh, literally the same orbit? You want a difference in the orbits, but okay. We need to catch up, so if we drop our orbit significantly... How low can we go? Okay, apparently we can go that low. We have to do a pretty large intercept burn. I wanna see our ships in low orbit over Titan. Like, this would be almost screenshot material if it wasn't for the game being very crude graphics. Inspect fleet. Oh yeah! Lovely horizon there. Very blocky and all that. But, yeah, we're looking good. A lot of heat radiating there. A lot of heat. Whoopsie. Okay. Okay, we're almost in range to fire our weapons. They have, significantly shorter range. And here's the advantage, right? We just need to be pointed face onto them, because our weapons are mounted on the nose. So we have a small surface area. They have to do a broadside. Large surface area. So, we're going to go to broadside. Now, people might be saying, oh, what are you doing broadside? Your gun's not on your broadside. Broadside rotates the ship until the longest range weapon is a clear shot at the target. We're fine. We'll do that. And I wish you could pause combat, by the way, because this is going to happen very fast. They're going to start firing at... I think it's going to be the Corvettes, because they're the biggest. Or are you the biggest? No, it must be these. Let's find out. Yeah, Corvette. So it's going to be one of these two Corvettes that they target. Let's go. Oh, hello. The engine's going crazy. Okay. Here come the nuclear shells. They're going for the other Corvette. Took a few hits. I'm surprised it's not... Oh, God. Wow. Yep. Spinning. Spinning. Look at that when the detonation just goes off. I wonder if the shells are actually detonating or not. Because I would have expected more damage if they'd actually detonated. I have told them to not detonate on proximity. Oh, we sheared it in half. Nice. Just the Corsair left. Which is starting to take hits, I think. It's listing. Oh, is it dead? No, it's still alive. Here we go. Shells are coming. Oh. Yep, engine's out. That's a decisive victory for us. Oh, is it? No. No, the Corsair's still alive. Why are we not firing? No target in firing arc. Are you sure? You've still got half your rounds left. And the target is very close. No target in firing arc. Are you really sure? Are you having a laugh? We're about to just overshoot completely. I guess this is a bug? I mean, I know the firing arc is literally straight forwards, but they should be able to point directly forwards. We don't have any damage to our craft or anything. Yeah, we're strafing straight past right now, and we still have no targeting arc. This is why front-mounted guns have issues on anything that's not enemies firing their railguns. Well, thank you very much for that. They only got like a couple of shots off and they completely missed. Oh, more. Hello. Ow. Don't hit my ships. I mean, the good news is our armor is holding up. I will say we've sort of won this encounter. The downside is I don't think our shells are actually detonating on impact. I think it was just the mass doing damage there. How are we holding up? Ooh! We did actually fire our COILGUN for like all of a second. I guess the ships are just having trouble aiming them. Maybe it's because we've got the high acceleration that they're like waving back and forth before the COILGUN can actually fire. That's all I can assume. Now my worry is that for the shells to detonate, they have a proximity sensor, and you can set that to be a minimum of 1 meter. I don't want them to detonate a meter. I want them to detonate on the hull, but I wonder if they aren't detonating because of that. So I'm going to play around, give them a proximity sensor, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, let's find out. I've changed them so that they've got a detonator for proximity. Set to 1 meter. Broadside. Broadside. And you know what? We'll leave 1. You know, we'll leave 2 in the back. That way, if we get the issue where someone gets too close, we can always change that. Firing. Right, grab one of their corvettes. Hello. No, it doesn't seem to be the issue. I guess 100-ton explosives don't really do much damage. Let's up the barrage. Gotta say, I was expecting a little bit more. I mean, we're still doing really good amounts of damage. Like, look at that. The armor's out in, like, massive, wide areas. Whereas if you're using a railgun, it would be just the tile you hit. Whereas with the nukes, we are decimating everything. We do need to get more hits, really. Oh, there we go. Look at that. A beautiful number of hits. Come on. Start focusing over here again. Honestly, for the cost of the weapon, I don't think it's the impact it really claims. I'd have expected more. Whoa! I think something just exploded and was propelled forwards at very high velocity. Corsair armor being damaged. This is a rounded nose, so we might even see a few deflections. Oh, hello, just lost its front gun. Okay. And we've just knocked out its engine. Come on. There we go. Catching up with it now. It should start going. Oh, look at that. Punched some massive holes in it. Oh, the end came off. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Oh, and the entire thing's glowing red hot. That is how you know your nukes are working, when the enemy is glowing red hot. Well, they work. I'm just not sure if they're worth the money. Now, obviously, against a fleet like that, they're pretty good. But, I don't know. I'm not convinced that they're quite worth the amount of money we're paying for them. Especially nose-mounted. And we'd have to put on a turret, and then the turrets are really large. And then there are longer range weapons that can destroy them. And, I mean, they fill a niche, right? But I'm not sure that the be-all, end-all weapon that I was kind of hoping it would be. I guess it's a good thing. Right, next time I guess we'll experiment with some more things. Maybe some sort of shrapnel weapon for taking out missiles? I don't know. It's not going to work, I bet. But we could try, like Battlestar Galactica, like poof, 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 flat cloud style. Or maybe we should try... I have no idea. Like, I was about to say super powerful laser. A super powerful laser ship actually exists in the game already, and it's pretty cool. I was going to try playing around mini missiles, but I was trying to do that in my spare time. The problem is that they burn through fuel too quick. Not because they don't have enough fuel on board, but because they just max their engine out and then get through their fuel halfway through the flight and go, what am I doing now? I'm like, dude, you... And also because missiles kind of suck, because they target the engine, because they're just infrared, and then they always miss because they don't anticipate movement of a craft. Like, even a basic computer could anticipate movement of a craft based on where it was and where it is now. And infrared. It's not too hard. You've got a point that moves, aim ahead of the point. But these just aim for where the infrared is now and then always end up behind it. Which, if you've got a large enough yield nuclear weapon, is pretty useful. It just detonates behind and it does a load of radiation and heat and destroys like radiators and stuff and engines. But mini missiles and stuff don't do that. Large missiles aren't as fun because you can easily shoot them down. But I was hoping we could spam mini missiles, but until they actually start hitting enemy craft, that's not really a starter. We could do like really tiny drones, maybe? Drones would work. We could do the smallest possible drone with some, I don't know, reasonable weapons. I don't know what we put on a small drone. Something to penetrate armor. We could try that. Just spam loads of tiny, tiny drones. That might be cool. But yeah, let me know some suggestions down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you have, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And if you are subscribed, please do click the little notification icon saying, please notify me if subscribed, because I want to see videos. Because, quite frankly, I think subscribe should do that anyway. But hey, what do I know? But yeah, until next time, give me suggestions down below and stay shiny.